Good morning, evening, or afternoon. Welcome to QMS. We are glad to have you here. As with any first day on the job, you must go through training. And this training is about putting the Q in QMS, which is quality. In this, you will learn about the tools and the processes for quality testing. So, let's preview over what we will be going over in this tutorial video. First up, we will be going over how to use calipers. This will take around 7 minutes. Next, we will cover protractors. This will take around 5 minutes. After that, we will spend around 4 minutes on tape measurements. Lastly, we will spend time learning how to use these skills for piece checking. Now that we have an idea of what we will be covering, let's dive into how to use calipers. To get started, we are going to go over some of the basics. First, let's learn how to use our calipers. In this video tutorial, you will follow along as I show you some of the parts of the calipers. First, you're going to want to turn on your calipers using the on button. Next, scroll the dial around and see the numbers change on the screen. You're going to want to make note that there is a Change Units button at the top of your calipers. Now, let's look at each component more precisely. The first part we come across is the outside jaws, which make outside measurements. Next is the inside jaws, which is used for inside measurements. After that, we will note the inch/millimeter button, which determines the units of measurement. Next, note the power button, which turns on the calipers. The middle button is the 0 button, which zeroes out your calipers. The right button is the ABS button. Next, we will notice the thumb dial, which is how you open and close the calipers. Lastly, we will note the depth rod, which is used for depth measurements. Moving on to the kinds of measurements that can be performed, there are 3 types. The first is outside measurement, with the outside jaws. The second is inside measurements, with the inside jaws. The last is a depth measurement, which uses the depth rod. Reading your calipers is fairly simple. You must simply read the value and take note of the decimal point and the units. Now we're going to take a quick quiz. Make sure to write down your answers on the sheet provided. First, what's the measurement you see here? Be sure to include your units. If you got 0.505 inches, you would be correct. Next question, what's this? If what you got was 0.916 inches, you'd be correct. Final question, what value is this? If what you got was 17.62 millimeters, you would be correct. Now we will begin an interactive tutorial. First, you're going to want to grab this part from out of your parts. Then you're going to want to grab your calipers. So, make sure to turn on your calipers. Then you're going to want to make sure that it's zeroed out and that the units are correct. Once you have confirmed all these things, you are going to want to go and grab your piece. Now, we are going to be measuring the gap on the inside of the piece, so we're going to be using the inside jaws. Position the piece to where you can use it. If it starts to flash, just turn the screen off and on again. Now, extend out the calipers to where the jaws touch the inside portions. you should get around 1.5 inches. If you did, congratulations. If not, try again. But if you got 1.5 inches, then you're going to want to mark success on test 1. Next, grab this piece from your set. Once again, we're going to want to make sure that our calipers are turned on and zeroed out. Once we have grabbed our piece, we're going to be doing a width measurement. So go ahead and extend it out so then we can clamp the jaws around it. Push the piece right up against the calipers. You'll notice we got 1.470. However, based upon our chart, we know that that is not correct. So we're going to mark fail for test 2. So what happened? Well, we failed to use the actual jaws portion of this caliper. So make sure that it's clamping at the teeth of the calipers. Once it clamps down at the teeth, you should get right around 1.5. If you do, then congratulations, we fixed the problem. Now that we have gotten it correct, we can mark success for test 3. Next up is our guide to protractors. The first thing we will do is learn the different parts of our protractor. The most important part of a protractor is a degree scale. The degree scale tells you the value of the angle. However, the degree scale is only as useful as the blade. The blade marks the angle value on the protractor. The blade is held in place by the clamp. When we typically think of a protractor, we would think of the kind that you would use at schools. However, for this tutorial, we'll be using a protractor with a depth gauge blade. To read your protractor, place your protractor to where the blade and base are flat against your piece. If the piece is on the left, read the lower number. If the piece is on the right, read the upper. If a part is placed here, its measure would be 130 degrees. Now it's time to take another quick quiz. We're going to try and do some protractor measurements this time. So, what is the angle if our piece is placed on this side? If you got 130 degrees, you'd be correct. Next, what's the angle if we place our piece on this side? If your value was 150 degrees, you would be correct. Last one, what would be the angle if you put your piece on this side? If you got 60 degrees, congratulations, you got it correct. Now we're going to move on to our interactive tutorial for protractors. Go ahead and grab out that piece that we were just using a minute ago. Alright, we're going to want to make sure that we have our protractor ready. Now that we have our piece and our protractor, we're going to want to go ahead and get our piece set up to where we are measuring this angle right here. You'll notice that I slide it all the way around so then it is able to go more flush. Now, if you notice that it is tight, make sure and loosen it a little. Place the blade and the base to where they are both flush with your piece. Once they are flush, you can tighten down the screw to be able to hold your angle. Once you have done that, make sure and take note of what your angle is. you should get around 88 degrees. If you did, mark success for test 1. Now we're going to grab out the piece that looks like this. Make sure that it is the last piece variant of it. Now, we are going to be measuring the angle up at the top of this hook. Grab your protractor and make sure that the blade and the base are flat against the piece. If your protractor is still tight like mine was, make sure to loosen it. You'll notice that I had some troubles grabbing it here, but once we have it, take note of the angle. You may notice that the angle that is shown on this piece is not within tolerance of our actual piece. So, because of this, we are going to mark fail for test 2. Grab the first piece variant of this piece and do the same measurement. You're going to notice that the first piece is actually within the tolerance. And so, once you have made the measurement, you can mark success for test 3. Now we are going to move on to our guide to tape measurements. First, let's once again get to know our tool. There are 2 main parts that we will focus on. The first is the thumb lock. The thumb lock holds the tape in place. Second is the hook. The hook has a very particular feature which we will go over now. The hook has an interesting feature to it. The loose hook allows it to extend out if there is a part placed on the inside, but it can also compress in if a part is placed on the outside of the tape measure. To read your tape measure, first find the inch marks. Halfway between them, you will find the half-inch mark. The next tallest marks are the quarter-inch marks. The next is the 1/8 inch marks. Last is the 16th inch marks. Now it is time for our quick review quiz to see if we've learned how to use a tape measure. First, what is the measurement shown in this image? If you got 2 13/16 of an inch, you are correct. Next question, what is the measurement shown in this image? If you got 10 5/8 of an inch, you are correct. Final question, what is the measurement shown in this image? If you got 6 1/2 inches, you are correct. Now we move on to another interactive tutorial. So, we're going to start by grabbing our piece. Then we're going to grab our tool, which is the tape measure. We're going to make a width measurement of this piece. Now, as you remember from the calipers, it should be around 1 1/2 inches. You can measure this at any place along the piece, and it should be around 1.5 inches. If your measurement ended up being 1.5 inches, mark success on test 1. Now, using the same piece, we are going to perform another measurement. Grab your tape measure, make sure that it is ready to go, and then grab your piece. This measurement is going to be a length measurement. We're going to measure the length of this longer part. So, grab your tape measure, attach the hook to the end of the part, and then latch down. From this, you would be able to see what the value is. However, to show it easier, I will extend it out so then you can make the measurement very clearly. As you can see, the measurement is 5.5 inches. If you got 5.5, mark success for test 2. We're going to do one last measurement. Grab your calipers box, and then grab your tape measure. We're going to measure the width of the calipers box. Latch it down. If the measurement you got is around 9 7/8 inches, then you would be correct. If you got 9 7/8 inches, make sure and mark down success for test 3. Now we move on to piece checking. When discussing piece checking, we have simple flowcharts which we can follow. This is an example of one of those flowcharts. You will notice key aspects such as automatic steps and diverging paths. You may also notice things such as repeating loops. One key detail worth discussing for this particular flowchart is the stop. It is vital to know the procedures when you hit a stop state. Now that we have a rough idea of what we are discussing, let's discuss when piece checks are made. There are 3 kinds of part checks made: start of job checks, work in progress checks, and end of job checks. Although most of these have many similarities, it is still important to know the differences between them. For start of shift, you will notice important details such as 2-minute warning and the direction to set up the machine. Once you have done the setup steps, you will make your first check of the day. If the part meets the standard, verify it with a supervisor or team lead. Once they have confirmed that the part meets the specifications, you can begin the process. This flow is for all 3 fields: assembly, fabrication, and press. But press also has some rules if the press is equipped with HMI. Now we're going to dive deeper into the chart. Starting at the 2-minute warning, we're going to set up our machine according to the router and other instructions given by our supervisor or team lead. Then we will do an operator part check using the documentation on hand to make sure that it meets specs. Does it meet the part specifications? If yes, then have it re-verified by a supervisor, team lead, or manager. Does the part still meet specifications? If yes, then you can begin your process. But, as on any of these checks, if your part does not meet specifications, you need to stop, call, and wait. To begin, let's perform a piece check on our first part. For this piece check, we need to have this document to know what aspects we are looking for. If you look at your sheet, you will notice the blanks on the page with the corresponding headers. Write down the measurements as you make them. Pause the video until you have completed your first part check. Now that we have completed our first part check, we will begin our process. As we do, we will discuss work in progress checks. Work in progress checks are a little simpler than start of shift checks for a few key reasons. First, you will notice that there is no need to start the machine as it will already be running. Second, you'll notice that you do not have to have multiple checks from different people, but rather you are performing the singular check. One interesting part of work in progress checks compared to other checks is that part of the flowchart forms a repeating loop. When not performing checks, your work exists in this loop. Diving deeper into a work in progress check chart, we'll start at the 2-minute warning again. Then, once again, we'll do an operator part check based upon our documentation given. Now, does the part still meet specifications? If yes, then we can continue running the job. As we are doing this, we're going to check and see if anything new has occurred, such as a new container of parts. If not, keep running the job. This loop will continue until you eventually hit a point where something new occurs. Once something new occurs, you will go all the way back to the beginning with an operator part check. Now, if part does not meet specification, then you will stop, call, and wait, just like with any process. Now we will perform another piece check using the same piece. Pause to complete it. The last kind of check we will perform is the last piece check. The last piece check is very similar to the first piece check in that it requires two people to check it. For the last check, there are some additional instructions for the different positions, but it works off the same primary concepts. Now we're going to dive into our last piece check. First, we're going to do an operator part check. Now, does the part meet specifications on this particular part check? If yes, then have it verified by quality supervisor, team leader, manager. Once they have checked it, there's only one path that is worth talking about, and that is if it does not meet. Once again, you would stop, call, and wait. Otherwise, your process is complete. Grab the last piece and perform a last piece check now. We seem to have come across a part that does not meet the specifications. Do not be alarmed when there is a problem. Instead, follow the instructions of stop, call, and wait so that we can resolve the issue. Let's now review what we've went over. We've covered how to use calipers in our first portion. Then, we covered how to use a protractor. After that, we covered how to use a tape measure. Finally, we discussed how to use our previous skills to perform a piece check. Congratulations! You've completed the quality training videos. You're now ready to begin your work here with us. We're excited to have you as part of our QMS family.